Hello, everyone. This is D2 Kasui with Urban Financial Services Coalition. Welcome to the Roundtable. We are at the Roundtable today. I am excited about this installment of the Roundtable, and we have a very special guest with Urban Financial Services Coalition because we are talking about the reset. Can everybody say reset with me? Go ahead and just say reset.
Say reset.
Reset. That's right. We got to reset. This is the time to reset and get ready for our next area of growth. And what we like to do at Urban Financial Services Coalition, we like to bring you the best. Did I say best? B-E-S-T. The best professional knowledge experts in the industry to talk to you about growth, talk to you about financial services, talk to you about being your very best. And so we have today Ms. Cheryl Brinkley. She is an executive coach, not just a coach, but an executive coach and certified leadership and employee development professional who has a passion for coaching, mentoring, and developing talent. She is a career acceleration catalyst and understands the needs of clients who desire promotions into senior level leadership ranks. With over 20 years working in various leadership and training roles, she has cultivated a proven track record of assisting individuals and leaders in the discovery of self-confidence, signature strengths, as well as realizing their untapped potential. She has worked in various Fortune 100 companies, as well as government and utility sectors. She's an International Coaching Federation accredited coach and certified holder of the UC Berkeley Haas Women's Executive Leadership Program. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big round of applause for Ms. Brinkley. Ms. Brinkley, how are you doing today?
Bravo. I'm well, and thank you so much, D2 and Walter and the Urban Financial Services Coalition for this opportunity.
Oh, it is our pleasure. It's our pleasure to have you at our table.
I love being at the table. We want a seat at the table. Yes, that's right.
Absolutely. Look, we in 1974, when Urban Financial Services was created, you know, we didn't have many people at the table, right? And so through the years and having made progress in the financial services industry, we got to the table. Now we're realizing, you know what, we can also create our own table.
Right.
So we are excited about our table. And our third person that will be a part of the table, this gentleman is amazing. He's wonderful. He's a former Urban Financial Services Coalition International President, former president of the San Francisco chapter of Urban Financial Services Coalition, a mortgage icon, right? An icon in the mortgage industry. He started in the mortgage industry when I was getting out of high school. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big round of applause to Walter
Did you just date Walter when you said that?
I'm like fine wine. I just get old. I just get better with time.
That's right.
It was a pleasure to be here, D2 and Cheryl. And, you know, our topic when we pulled this whole session and series of discussions together, but this is number 2, economic reset. And we're looking at this economy right now. The news media is talking about, is it going to be a soft landing or is it going to be a hard landing? Are we in a recession? Are we not in a recession? And if you really look closely at what the news media is saying, be it Reuters, Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, et cetera, it conflicts because they're really not quite sure. There's mixed signals. And so we're concerned about this time, professional career strategies and tactics, particularly for people of color. Now, we're going to be talking in a general sense for everyone, but people of color oftentimes are in a silo. They're kind of in their environment, and from a cultural standpoint, they can be isolated and not feel comfortable with talking with individuals. And so we wanted to create a space to have that conversation for executives, financial professionals, entry-level, mid-level, to be able to hear some thoughts, get their brainstorming going, and also give them a place to come back to. And you're going to want to look up Cheryl as well, because she is an expert and is an outstanding resource. I'm excited to be here, D2. Thanks for coordinating this. And I'm just pleased as punch.
Well, I'm glad to have you. And we are going to go ahead and just jump right on in. So Walter, you want to go ahead and give Ms. Brinkley her first question?
Yes. May I call you Cheryl?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Cheryl, what things should a minority executive be doing to prepare for the next growth position? And in connection with that question, there may be some other clarifying comments that you want to make just to set the stage.
Yeah, as I listen to the question, it's important for every working professional, and especially those who are in the minority groups, that they really take stock and inventory about their own agency and what they can do to move the needle forward for themselves. A lot of times, individuals are waiting for someone to do something for them. And I will just say off the top, that's a typical misnomer when it comes to career development. We have to initiate. We have to share with others what we want and the vision that we have for ourselves. When we do that and we perform well, we're allowing a space for others to come alongside us and invest in us and help us to get to where we want to go. So I'll just lay the foundation with that.
Yeah, that's an excellent foundation. I often think about Dr. Stephen R. Covey, who wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And the first habit he really talks about is being proactive. And
yes,
people think about being proactive. We're really talking about taking control of our lives. It's taking 100% responsibility for our future. And oftentimes for some professionals, and speaking specifically for African-American professionals, we want life to be fair, right? We see things happening differently for other folks, where they're being guided, they are being focused on. And so that can be a little frustrating. So in those type of environments, Cheryl, what are your thoughts on how we can handle the frustration of what we may see others, and at the same time, put our focus on things that we can actually control?
Yeah, D2, that's a great framing. And it's true. It's oftentimes that we look and see what others are receiving, but what we don't see is what that person may have done to lay the groundwork for themselves to enable these things to happen. So, and I think that's true with anything in life, right? Burning the midnight oil, going to school, not participating in certain activities for a period of time to position yourself to get ahead are sacrifices that many people make in life. And then later, when people see they're reaping the rewards of these investments, of these sacrifices, people wonder, how did they get that? So in the context of, let's just say, a working scenario, we have to really focus on our own owner mentality. We can't worry about what someone else is doing. We have to focus on what's accessible for me. And listen, maybe ask a question. How did you get that? How did you get that? So that I can do that too, right? So that's the thing that I will probably speak in this space because we may be, speaking to minorities in particular. But again, owner mentality versus victim mentality. And if I'm owning and driving, my career trajectory, I'm looking for ways to maximize all of my opportunities. And also, what am I doing specifically to make it attractive for someone to want to support me? Because at the end of the day, people have to know us, trust us, like us, and want to do business with us. You have to have the energy that invites people to want to come alongside and invest.
Absolutely. And when we get comfortable with that, we get comfortable with what our strengths are, we get comfortable about having a plan and working towards that plan and understanding the landscape and the environment that we're in, then we put ourselves in position where good things are going to happen. It may not happen initially, but good things will happen if we stay the course, we remain consistent, and we get confident in what we bring to the table. That's what I'm taking from your conversation. And then I really like the part about asking questions and finding out the story, because a lot of times we do just see the end result. And if we take that time to build those relationships, have those conversations, we can pick up some pearls from folks. And so I know it's old school. They got your pearls on. Yeah,
absolutely. The wisdom, right?
Yeah, it's old school to go ahead and take someone out for lunch, pull them aside and say, hey, can we meet for breakfast, or 15 minutes before the meeting, or follow up, say, hey, I'm gonna walk with you down the hall, or virtually on Zoom, say, hey, can you stay back? Can you hang back, a few minutes? Got a few questions I'm willing to ask you, or can I send you a text or a follow-up? I mean, those are things that people can do at no matter what level that they are, that will help give them some additional information to position themselves for that next career growth.
Yes, and I love what you said about having a plan. I think a lot of us miss that key component. We have to create a development plan that we are using as our roadmap. And we have to also take stock and inventory of what are my gaps? How do I shore them up? Who do I need to help me do that? And what does that look like? Right? And there's a formula that actually is a 70-20-10 formula for career development. 70% of your development and opportunities are going to come right in the role that you're in. So you grow where you're planted right now. How can I leverage the role that I'm in to get stronger in specific acumen that I may be lacking? And again, having conversations with my immediate leader about, hey, I want to grow in these areas. I'd like to get more exposure. These are the conversations we need to have. So 70% is right where you are. Now, along with that, 20% is the exposure component. How do I get more exposure so that others know and can see what I can do? And I call these showcase opportunities. You have to be able to allow others, a broader audience, to see what you can do and how you can deliver, right? And then the 10% is continuing education. It's not one and done just because you got your undergrad. It's not one and done because you got your graduate education. It's not. You want to continue to make investments in yourself so that, you can progress in the ways that you are looking to do. And if you really are serious about climbing up this ladder, you have to be noticing, well, what is the acumen that I'm going to need up the chain that I can be working on now, investing in now, so that I'm ready for these opportunities when they come up, and then I can be competitive at the interview table.
Oh, absolutely. Excellent. Before I jump in on that, I mean, because I want to pull on some strings right there, but let me bring Walter in. Any insights, Walter, from what we've been sharing so far?
Yeah, I really like this, the career development plan, the 70-20-10 model that you mentioned, Cheryl. In connection with that, what are your thoughts about how, and that's reality. I mean, looking at what's happening in the job and how to grow those opportunities, be more effective, I think I heard you say. And there's a lot involved with that 70-20-10. But looking down the line, what can a person do to find out what kind of acumen they're going to need for the future? What kinds of things would you suggest that they be using to identify what qualities or skills they'll need for the future?
Oh, great question. One, looking at the job roles for the position that you may want, if it's a couple of levels ahead of where you are now. So internally, you have your job connect or some place where internal jobs are posted for employees at the company, and start looking at the positions. And also I invite you to look at the ones outside the company too.
Yes.
Take a look,
yes.
Understand what the minimum qualifications are and also the desired qualifications. And when you do that, that gives you a pretty good idea of what's needed, right? To, really prepare for these roles that are ahead of you. Also, D2, you mentioned like having coffee dates. So if there are officers or senior leaders, within your organization, in your line of business, that you are interested in cultivating relationships with, reach out and ask for time, like you said, to get on their calendar for 15 minutes, 30 minutes tops, and have your set of questions ready to hear about their career journey. And then you can ask them questions about, what did you do to prepare? How did you get from here to there? And in order to do that. And also, I'll drop a book recommendation into this space. There's a book that's called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And I believe the author is Marshall Goldsmith, and he's an executive coach, and he's worked with, many CEOs of top companies. And yeah, so what you're doing today will not be the acumen that you need in the future. And so taking a look and, again, stock and inventory about your skills, your strengths, leaning on the strengths, and cultivating a community of people that can come alongside you to help you in that, development, and also the process of getting what you need to get, have your competitive, acumen and skill set aligned for when the moment of opportunity comes.
Excellent. Thank you.
Excellent.
That's very helpful.
Yeah, I love that. And if I can pull on that a little more, oftentimes people can get complacent in their current job, and they're doing that 70% that you're talking about, right? I'm good. I made it to the VP level. I'm a senior VP now, and now I've kind of, I got a little prestige. People, I got a title. I got an officer title. Maybe I got a parking space now. I got a couple of things, right? And so sometimes people can get complacent and get very comfortable in the company, and then get frustrated, because maybe they're doing the things that you've mentioned, but they're not getting that traction there. How do we invite folks if they're doing the things that you've mentioned, right? They are doing the 70%, they're talking to folks, they're doing the additional education. How can we invite them to consider building their networks beyond their company and maybe going places or doing jobs that may be a step back or a side job that sets them up to go to the next level, because it may not be the traditional route?
Now, D2, you're saying a whole lot in there. So it's true. All of that's true. But let me start with the first thing that you said about complacency. There's a phrase, dying on the vine. So in a world where nothing is certain, we live in a VUCA world. It's volatile and it's uncertain. There's change and chaos, and we have to be able to remain agile. So first of all, is not putting ourselves in a position to be complacent. That's number one. We also always have to be working on something. No one ever fully arrives, if you will. The world is changing, business is changing. COVID threw us all for a loop for 3 years, and we're coming out of it. And companies have to pivot and make adjustments. And what we're seeing right now are a lot of layoffs going on in the market because companies are right sizing. And so knowing that companies are looking out for their best interest, I believe every professional needs to treat themselves as their own enterprise. You need to manage your career like it's a business. You need to manage your brand like it's a business. And you always have to remain fresh and aware of what is coming up as far as new technologies. Those are great ways to get ahead of the curve and have something in your pocket that will serve you, that might be a differentiator between you and someone else, at an interview table. Don't wait for someone to bring it to you. Be on the forefront, be your own pioneer, if you will, and forge new territory for yourself in every role. Now, staying in one company for a measure of time can also be a detriment. There are only so many roles at the top. If you're ready to grow and let's just say you've tapped out of all of the resources available to you at your present company, then it's time for a pivot. And be ready to do that. Be ready, as you said, to navigate sideways, backwards, or whatever, but put yourself in position to go where the pasture is going to give you more stretch and opportunity. But be strategic about it. Again, this goes back to your development plan. What's in your plan? What's my timing for getting where I want to go? And, if we get to a place where I'm approaching this timeline that I have and there isn't more here, then I have to make a business decision about that. It's a business decision for myself.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Extremely, extremely powerful. And I loved what you shared because I've seen it in the industry. I've seen colleague A who is working hard. And then you know what? After you get a certain level, and especially when the company starts to reorganize and, really, before the 1980s, we really didn't have, reorganization, right? That's really, what companies started doing, especially when they came under the mindset of shareholder supremacy. They say, hey, how can we take our existing money and use it somewhere else? And so what's the biggest amount of money we often spend? It's like, oh yeah, it's on salaries, right? So, you start moving up, you become susceptible to, salary considerations. And so I know one colleague, A, got downsized. He picked up the phone and had an interview the next day. That colleague B, who got downside, and it took him 6 months to find another job that was equal. So what was the difference between the A and the B? A was prepared and was networked. They picked up the phone, shared with a colleague here in the Richmond area that was a member of Urban Financial Services Coalition. That colleague made a phone call, said that this person is available, and this hiring supervisor was like, let's get him in here tomorrow before somebody else gets him. So you don't want to make those calls at the moment that you're losing your job. You build those relationships over time so that when you need them, one, somebody's going to answer that call. Back to your point about exposure, who knows who you are and the value that you bring to the table. And then you're harvesting it right at the moment that you need it. So that's extremely powerful. But what I want to get to is, you talked about this in your comments, is the personal branding. Some executives get focused on doing their work. So they think, my work in the business is my brand. I'm adding it every day. So when you talk about personal branding, what does that look like in the 21st century? What does that look like at the C-suite or senior level? I'm trying to bump into the senior level. What does personal branding look like at that level and above?
Well, personal branding is a little bit more than just what I'm doing. It really is my value proposition. So what value do I bring to the business and to others? How do people perceive me as far as the value that I'm bringing to them? And there has to be reciprocity here. It's not all about, me and what I'm trying to get. Other people have to feel like, in their experience with us, that I'm helping them level up. I'm helping them in their value. And no matter where I am, my brand and who I am and what my value proposition is, drop me into any company and that's what they're going to get, right? So I love the way you asked that question, because it's not about my title. And a lot of times people get hung up on titles. And quite honestly, we're really not defined by that. It's back to know, like, and trust. It's back to relationship building. And as you said, that network, and I want to just put a stat out there, 85% of our opportunities come from the network. So if you don't have a network, if you've not cultivated relationships inside or outside the company, like Urban Financial, Services Coalition or the SF Black MBA, you're doing yourself a disservice. People beyond your immediate field of play need to know who you are and your value, what you can do, and can I bring this person along with me, right? Yeah. And a lot of times, as senior leaders get into C-suite positions, I'm sure people have noticed, if they're bringing them in from the outside, it won't be long before they start bringing people from their other experiences along with them, right?
Right.
I mean, I know I'm not the only one that's noticed that, right?
That's right.
So
Absolutely.
you know, how do you get your mentors? How do you get your sponsors? How do you cultivate people who can speak your name in rooms that you're not in, that can give you wisdom and advice and to give you feedback, because you need that feedback, and truly is a gift if you choose to receive it that way, to take that, work on those areas that may be developmental edges, start smoothing those things out, boosting up your executive presence, and have an attitude that is in alignment with where you're trying to go. You can't have a victim mentality and still expect to ascend to an ego level.
Right.
You know,
Right.
we got all kinds of birds in the world, right? Some are walking on the ground or flying low to the ground, and then there's some that are soaring high, right? So, you know, there's a different mentality that eagles have than pigeons. So I'm just throwing it out there. But anyhow,
keep going.
It's just an example. And then I also want to say, nothing comes for free. You have to be willing to invest, right? And so who's on your personal board of directors that can advise you, pour wisdom into you, snatch you back, you know, when you need it? And I will also say, I'm going to drop in here, you need an executive coach. Don't wait for a performance review to go sideways or a coaching plan. You know what I mean? Get your team together. So like a personal fitness trainer works with you one-on-one to get your strength and to help you get, you know, whatever your physical goals are. You need an executive coach that will come alongside you and help you work through your acumen. And these are investments. These are professional investments. And if you want return on investment, if you want to accelerate results, you've got to get yourself the trainer that you need that's going to help you get there.
That's got to be in the financial planning. That's got to be in the budget.
You got to put it in your plan.
That's right. And you know, in connection with that, in terms of the career polishing, when you talk, can you talk a little bit about the holistic attitude that a person should have in terms of their life? When you're talking to people or executives about them, you know, it's not just when they go into their job or their professional, but what are the other pieces of their life that you may address or think that they should be thinking about to be in sync, to have a base to support working on themselves?
Yes. Great question, Walter. I think understanding your values is a critical piece. Knowing what's important to you. For instance, my values, faith, family, and fulfillment, and financial freedom. So they happen to be F's, but that's all right. But what are your set of values? What's most important to you? And based on your values, which are your North Star, you can make decisions about what's important. And whenever you're in a situation in your career that is bumping up in a way that is not congruent with your values, you have to take stock and inventory about, okay, is this a scenario I need to be in? So values is a holistic thing because it impacts me as an individual personally and impacts me professionally, and also how I'm choosing to show up in the world. And I worked with an executive during COVID, actually, in 2020. He'd been with this company for, I want to say, more than 10 years, and was positioning himself for an officer seat. And then COVID happened, and he was downsized from his position. Now he's out looking for work. And so we took the time to talk about, well, what are your values? And when he started talking about what's going on in his life right now personally, what's going on with the season of life his children were in, what kind of life and freedom that he wanted, well, that had an influence on the kind of jobs that he was looking for.
Yes.
Maybe it's not an officer role at X level, because that's going to impact my time and availability to be more present with my family. And right now for me, it's showing up and being a part of what's going on in my teenager's life right now, right? And so that he came to the coaching with, one ideal in mind about the job level he wanted, but ended up pivoting and getting into a role that was at the level that he wanted, the compensation that he wanted, less travel, made him accessible and available for his family, and found a great fit for himself that it wasn't about the title. It really was about the kind of work he wanted to be doing right now in this season of his career.
Oh,
so important.
Yeah, extremely powerful. And, some people have said that COVID has really made that present for folks, because we did lose a few folks. COVID, and helped give people, greater perspective with that. And so let's stay in this executive coaching space for.
Well, D2, before we do that, I want to take one other point on that.
Okay.
I'm going to go back in history a little bit. The 80s and the 90s, the go-go 80s, a lot of folks in corporate America got caught up. And then when things started downsizing, so many people just were caught in a crisis of their identity, because they were so caught up in the corporate identity that they didn't have anything left when the corporation said, we're going to part ways. And that really is so right down the line of what Cheryl is talking about. And I think that's one of our foundation mindsets that we've got to have as we're doing this conversation right now. But go ahead, D2.
Yeah, and so good point, Walter. For those of people who grew up in the traditional sense, your company was your brand, right? So
yes.
I work for XYZ company, I work for XYZ company, blah, blah, blah. I know there's some financial institutions that people still think I work there, and I haven't worked there in 15 years, right? But it was, they placed an ad in the paper, the brand was the company, and individuals drafted off of the credibility of the companies that they work for. And especially in the financial services industry, some of those companies are no longer in existence.
That's true. That's true.
So to that point, go ahead.
D2, go ahead. Well, I just want to just throw another slice in there. The corporation became the family. Before that, the family moved to the city to work in the factories. The factories wanted to become more efficient, so they started going 24 hours. So families weren't that nuclear family that lived on the farm anymore, where they worked together and people knew their kinfolk and the stories, and they were trusted people who loved them that they could talk to. And then you've got Upton Sinclair and the Jungle and all those kinds of things that have happened. And so we really lost a lot of our foundation that Cheryl rebuilt with this client that she's working with. And that's part of the dialogue that we want to make sure that our members and people in our sphere think about their North Star and who are their tribe.
Can I jump in here on Walter on that point? Something that I noticed in my last few years in corporate was there's the entity of the company and there's an entity of me. And the we is not always me and the company, because the company's going to make decisions for their survival and longevity. And sometimes their decisions personally impact us. And they say it's not personal, it's business. Well, it is personal when it happens to you.
Yeah.
So I believe that once we get clear on the fact that this relationship is as good as long as it's mutually viable on both sides. And everything has an expiration date. So we're going to break up at some point.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm leaving or you're going to make me leave. I don't know what this looks like, but there's going to be a breakup in the future. I'm going to retire. Something's going to happen. So with that said, I as long as we can make sure that we keep separation and understanding that this is a business relationship. And listen, Bill Withers said, keep on using me as I use you. He sang the song. So, right on the brand of JP Morgan or
wait a minute, hold it.
Right on the brand. But
hold it.
Make sure you have your own brand intact.
D2, this is a different Cheryl than we had at the beginning of our conversation. Now we're getting the real. Okay, I like this. That's all. Cheryl, please continue.
I'm just saying, make sure that you are very clear about what your goals are, what your timing is, what your values are, what your value proposition is, how you bring value to others, lock in your network, nurture that network, and don't just come to this network when you need something. Be available to support your network too. It's reciprocity. Don't be that friend that only comes when they need to borrow a buck or two, because we don't like to see them kind of friends. It's like, here they go. So anyway, I digress, but
Excellent. Excellent.
Give, and know that it will come back to you. It will come back to you, right? So, but just be intentional about all of your choices and maintain ownership of your life and your career. And know that there is a life. Your career is not your life. So let me just say that.
Yes, no, that's an excellent point. And you can tell the difference culturally. Like when you ask a person who's European and you ask them what they do, they're often going to say, oh, I love to ski. The things that they do recreationally. You ask an American what they do, they're going to tell you their job title.
Exactly.
So it's a key distinction. And so why I wanted to stay in this executive space, could you talk a little bit about the evolution of coaching? You mentioned it a little bit, how most executive coaching was because there was a problem. And now in the industry, the availability of coaching is different. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Typically, coaching was reserved for leaders at the most senior levels. And if there was something that they needed to work on, influence, whatever that edge was, because everyone has blind spots. Let me just say, okay? And so in order for them to be most impactful and effective, the organization would hire executive coaches for them to work with these leaders. But it's an amazing benefit because it's not just about waiting for something to go wrong. It's an opportunity for you to get faster, better, stronger in your strength and people leadership acumen. Now, note, there are a lot of leaders who have ascended into senior ranks because of their ability to perform and get things done. But They don't teach people leadership acumen in grad school. You don't typically get in your onboarding with a new role, here's your playbook for being an effective leader. That doesn't exist. And so bad habits and that may have helped me get to where I, was in my lower level will not be effective as I get up here. For instance, if someone has a habit of getting things done, but leaving dead bodies in the wake, well, you can't be an officer operating like that. That won't help you. And let me just say, people that you did that burned, they don't forget that stuff either. And one thing my dad told me growing up, be nice and be aware of how you treat people on the way up, because you may have to meet them on the way back down. And so this is about being the kind of leader that people want to follow, that inspires me to go the extra mile for. That takes a different kind of flex. And so knowing this, people go to the gym and they hire personal trainers because they want their bodies and their physiques to look a certain way. Let's not wait for something to be wrong. Let's say things are going right, but I'm trying to prepare myself for being a most impactful leader that I can be. As I envision my career future. So I'll just kind of couch it that way, because it's, be the leader that I wish I had, right? So work on being that. Work on being the leader that you wish that you have. And I know that everyone's had bad leaders. They've had good leaders. Take the good, leave the bad, but work on your authentic leadership presence. And that's where the opportunity resides for these kinds of professional services.
Absolutely. And Cheryl, thank you for sharing that. As a person who has benefited from coaching, I have found that it's good to have someone that I hired
Exactly.
to give me specifically advice for me
Mm-hmm.
that is designing my feedback for me.
Yes.
And I don't have to ever worry about what I'm sharing with them getting back to the company or getting back to some other, individual, right? That is, what I have invested in myself. Mm-hmm. So I do want to encourage folks, if you're really looking at a way to take your growth, right? Because you don't hire an executive coach for the past. Right? You hire a coach for what you want to do in the future. And if you want customized advice, customized support in creating that plan, that's where you want to get an executive coach like Cheryl Brinkley, who's certified.
Thank you.
And we're Urban Financial Services Coalition because we believe in certification. We believe in getting with the professionals. We don't want someone who spent the night at the Holiday Inn, got some inspiration, and then now you're coming out and say, I want to hang my shingle. I want to be a financial advisor. I want to hang my shingle. I'm a mortgage guru, right? What we believe is that in professionalism, people who have paid their dues, they've worked hard, they got the experience of actually being in the industry. And then on top of the experience, they went out and got the certifications to cement that. And so that they're in position to give people the best advice. So Cheryl, thank you so much for giving us some pearls of wisdom today as the people who are participating, who are looking at growing in this VUCA world, how they can position themselves. So what I'd like to do is give you opportunity to share some final thoughts, some final advice that you would give to that person who says, you know what, I'm looking ahead. There's some uncertainty. I'm not sure about my values. I'm not sure about what's important to me anymore because this world has just been turning upside down. What words of wisdom would you close us out with today?
Oh, beautiful. Well, we have to understand that in life, death, taxes, and change are a reality. And we have to be cognizant of being our own change agents and taking advantage of this one life that we have and make choices that are going to be most fulfilling for us. And cultivating the networks like this Urban Coalition that we have here and other professional networks. LinkedIn is a network. Lean into these things. They're there to help support you unpack and really enjoy and appreciate whatever your aspirational vision is, and make investments, right? If you put zero in, you can't expect to have a return on zero, right? So you have to be willing to put yourself in position to get what you need to further your development. And let's not hate on anyone else's game, because you don't know what they're doing. They may have the things that we've talked about that they're executing their plan for. Get your own plan, work your plan. And when you do that, you don't have time to worry about what someone else is or isn't doing. You're in control. And my tagline is ignite your shine, own and drive your destiny, for those very reasons. And that's why I became a coach, because I'm passionate about supporting people in their trajectory of getting more of what they want. And I want to say thank you for this amazing opportunity. Walter, please
Cheryl,
do share.
How can people reach you?
Oh, thank you. My site is itmcoachingnextlevel.com. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you connect with me on LinkedIn and you reference this program, I will provide you with a values worksheet for free that you can use to get started. And I'm always happy to get on a call just to talk about what your aspirations are or to give some quick wisdom.
Great. And you were going to say something and I jumped in, Cheryl. I'm sorry to disturb your stream of thought, but I wanted to get that done. Was there anything else
thank
that you
you,
had?
Walter.
Okay, you're welcome. And you know, we work together in the Bay and also in DC with your national organization, with the Black MBAs, and we're looking forward to doing more work with you in your coaching business also. D2, back to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Cheryl. Coach, Executive Coach Brinkley, thank you so much for being a part of our call, being at the table with us at the table. I had a good time. I hope you'll come back as you continue on this journey and you find pearls that you think will add value to minority financial professionals. You have an open invitation here at Urban Financial Services Coalition at our table as this reset continues. And so it's been my pleasure, D2 Kasuli, to be here with Walter Brown and Shirley Brinkley talking about the future, talking about growing, talking about our careers, and talking about our impact. And what I would encourage folks to remember is to be a river and not a reservoir.